Hey, man, how about the Vols? I know they lost yet again, but hell, I mean, it's kind of what I thought. I thought they'd get their ass handed to them. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Shane. I thought Tennessee was going down there, going into another Alabama massacre. I know the final score was a little lopsided, but you got to be proud of the fight this team has, because it seems like they're playing with one arm tied behind their back, and they gave Alabama all they can handle for about 3 quarters.
Well, when you're fighting them and the refs and, McElroy up there in the press box, I mean, what'd you think was going to happen? I mean, this thing couldn't get more pro-Alabama. I don't want to take away anything from Alabama. In fact, if I'm taking anything away from this game, it's this right here, Mike. I want to apologize. I want to apologize to all that SEC podcast cousins out there that are listening to this on Monday morning, because I know I'm a homer. In fact, we started this podcast talking about the damn Tennessee game, even though it wasn't the 3:30 CBS game. So I want to apologize for my homerism, because as I'm listening to Greg, every time there was a good pass from Young, it was, golly, look at that. That was a perfect dime. And then every time Hooker threw a good pass, it's like, well, that was terrible coverage. What happened? It was just I've never felt so much homerism in my entire life. And then I thought about you guys, and I said, you know what? This isn't fair. I'm going to start doing better. This is the SEC podcast, not the Tennessee podcast. But if you did watch that damn game, Mike, I'm going to tell you right now, that is the worst officiating I have ever seen in my life. When you can freeze frame a block to the face between 2 defenders getting held, it's like, what are we doing here? I mean, come on. Could we not get one call? That was a fumble at the goal line. The ball was moving. I'm trying to reverse that. And it's hard for me to say if Tennessee was doing that, that would not be a touchback. I just know it would be. So I'm going to tell you, it was a hell of a game. I think we surprised a lot of people out there. But let's not forget that this is Alabama. And, they had to make some crucial mistakes for us to stay in this thing. That's how good this program is. But I will tell you, you look at this game, you look at the Florida game, you look at the Texas A&M game. This is not the same Alabama team that we've seen in years past, Mike.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I didn't even mention the score of the game here, Shane. Alabama 52, Tennessee 24. We'll break down that game in just a moment, but you did get me thinking there. Alabama may not be the elite Alabama that we're used to seeing, but I got to be honest. Speaking of homerism, of course, we're SEC homers. There wasn't a lot of SEC action this week, so, while I was waiting, I had the Arkansas game on. I had the Oklahoma-Kansas game on. I had Cincinnati versus, I think they were playing Navy. And those are the 2 teams we got 2 and 3 in the country. I mean,
Penn State fighting for their lives up there.
God. I mean, I don't think Cincinnati would beat half the SEC, yet they're ranked number 2 in the country. Oklahoma, I mean, my God, Kansas is the worst program in college football. They had to break the rules just to get the conversion to win the game. So we could sit here and pick apart these SEC teams, but my goodness, they would just Alabama would beat the hell out of Cincinnati. I think the over/under would probably be around 30 points. Don't you think?
It was so funny. I was flipping through the channels, and I stumbled across the Cincinnati, and I saw that 2 beside him. And instantly, I looked to the bottom right to see if I was on ESPN Classic. I was like, am I catching a 90s film here? I did not realize that they somehow snuck into the top 10, not the top 2. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, who votes this shit? Who sits there and says, who's the number 2 team in this country? It's got to be the Cincinnati Bearcats. I mean, look how great they've been doing, How could you even think that? I don't care if they even pulled off a couple upsets. I don't know their schedule, don't care. I'm just saying that roster, there's no way in hell you can put them in a top 10. When you got teams like Alabama, when you got teams like Georgia, when you got teams like damn Texas A&M now.
Yep.
It seems like Ole Miss now.
Ole Miss.
I mean, if you put Cincinnati in the SEC, I'm telling you, buddy, they may not make a bowl game. That's just it's just laughable to me that somebody sent that vote in. That not just one, many people did that because that was an absolute joke. And then, like you said, I know this is an SEC podcast, but you're right. Arkansas peanut butter there, that game was over, and I couldn't watch any more of it without falling asleep. So I drifted over myself, and I'm watching that damn Kansas game, and them refs, buddy, I don't know what's going to happen next year when Oklahoma and Alabama go against each other. These refs ain't going to know which way to call. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be so many damn flags on the field. This game may never. It may be the longest college game in history.
Well, yeah, so let's get back to the Tennessee-Alabama game, Shay. Speaking of penalties, Tennessee did a lot of this. They did it to themselves. 12 penalties, 98 total yards. Feels like 98 there. Alabama only 4 penalties for 30 yards. To me, that wasn't really the story of the game, Shay. It was more just the fact that,
the targeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not that, but
the fake false starts.
This game,
not that one either. Okay.
It seemed like Alabama was always on the brink of breaking the thing open. Yet Tennessee's defense, Shane, they just. Time and time and time again, and we've given Josh Heupel and this offense so much attention, yet this is 2 weeks in a row, Shane, where the defense really held Ole Miss in the second half, and then here Alabama in the first half. I mean, we're talking consecutive 3-and-outs on the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're talking special teams blocking a kick, and here we got Bryce Young, almost like last week, Matt Corral, just making the critical plays on third down. It seemed like Tennessee had Alabama on third and long all night long. Alabama converted 33 first downs. Tennessee only 10 first downs for the Vols. Jeez. Because most of their production was on big plays there. So credit the offense for coming up with those big plays, but they faced over 90 plays in this game. They faced over 100 a week ago. Tennessee just. I mean, it's like a broken record over here, but they just don't have the roster right now. They don't have the depth to be going 190 plus plays back-to-back weeks, and the dam broke, so to speak, and Bama busted. You cannot give the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa any advantage here, any like a crack in the door. They're going to bust that dam right open, and that is exactly what happened in the fourth quarter. So that's a credit to Alabama, but I'm just so surprised that Tennessee is willing to fight and compete, and it's just because I haven't seen them do it in years and years. You know what,
Mike? I'm going to tell you, a lot of people talking about Heupel and what he's done with this program, but you got to look. I'm telling you, that defensive coordinator, Tim Banks, may be the best damn hire that we ever had, because you're looking at this offense of Alabama is elite, man. I mean, there's a lot of first-round talent over there, and Tennessee was able to hold them in check most of the game. Like you said, in the fourth quarter it opened up, but you're talking about a thin defense that played the entire time. You know what I'm saying? This is a thin defense. And if we could learn how to stop a quarterback run in the middle, about 30 yards in for a pass, I tell you, man, this defense is damn near perfect. So these guys are playing hard as hell. But like we're saying, I mean, we're pumping up Tennessee just because they kept Alabama in check for a little bit. I thought to myself, if we can keep this a 2-score game going into the fourth quarter, we may have a shot, and we did. And if it weren't for that boneheaded intercept, actually, there was a couple mistakes they made there late in the game, but mainly that interception, that was just that broke their back. And if they could have capitalized and got some points and made this a 1-score game, who knows what could have happened. So, but just like I said, that's a well-coached team. When you look at Alabama, you look at Nick Saban's rosters in years past, they don't make a lot of mistakes, but when they do, they don't kill themselves. They typically learn and they build from it, and that's what I felt like happened there in the fourth quarter. So as much as I like to make fun of Saban, I mean, he's still the GOAT for a reason.
Shane, did you know that Henry To'oTo'o was a former volunteer?
Oh, God. Jeez, Mike.
How many times do they have to tell us that?
What was best is when he let that guy go and we blocked that punt. Yeah. They nipped that storyline in the bud right there. So
I'm glad you said that, Shane, because that was a crucial moment in the game. Tennessee blocks a punt deep in Alabama territory. I believe it set Tennessee up in the red zone immediately. But what did Alabama's defense do? They responded. They held Tennessee to a field goal. And to me, that segment kind of, I don't want to say defined the game, but, that swing of a momentum, you've got to punch it in the end zone. And I thought the other one that was huge, Shane, again, we give Josh Heupel credit, and I think he's doing a hell of a job, but this is 2 games in a row now, Shane, where I don't think he's calling his best stuff, because there was a lot of plays in the Ole Miss. I was left scratching my head, and then here against Alabama, particularly 3rd and short, a lot of runs up the middle. When you got Lyman out, you're never going to beat Alabama one-on-one, even if all your starters are in there. So that was curious. Right. And then the decision to punt the ball late, I believe it would have been a 4th and around 2, but they it seemed like indecisive. They didn't know what they were going to do. Then they called the punt team. They got to delay a game. And when you punt it to Alabama and then they go right down the field and make it a 2-possession game, I mean, that was about all she wrote.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those games that if Tennessee was going to have any shot, they couldn't let it become a blowout. And I'm telling you, me personally, it hurt my feelings, not just because the game was out of play then, but I'm a gambler, Mike, and that point spread this whole time, I'm like, oh, golly, because that's the only one I needed for a 14 parlay, and I was like, come on, baby, just keep it close, but then all of a sudden the dam broke, and then that last drive, I think the most disappointing for me, well, I don't want to say that, because I think the most disappointing part of that game for me was that fumble there at the goal line. You saw Heupel on the sideline really upset with that situation. And I know as a Bama fan, you're going to be, you're okay with it. But if again, this is one of those things, I like to flip the script. Mm-hmm. If that was the other team doing that, what would you think that call should have been? You know what I'm saying? And if you could honestly say you thought it was a touchdown, then fine, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, 9 times out of 10, if that thing would have got called a fumble, it would have stayed a fumble. It would have been a touchback. So again, Tennessee 2 weeks in a row, a line judge is going to dictate how finish game. So, it's kind of frustrating. I get Tennessee fans. Boy, I tell you right now, we do not trust the stripes. I'm telling you, there is no trust at all. So, but it was a hell of a game, Mike. I ain't gonna lie. 3rd Saturday in October. The main thing for me, Mike, is it's finally competitive. Right. You think about the Pruitt years. You think about the Dooley years. It's just Butch years. I mean, we've been getting our ass kicked from. And you look at the point spread. If you didn't watch the game, you probably think it's a blowout. But it was a competitive ball game until the 4th quarter there. So that's, as a Tennessee fan, I am still tickled pink, even though we lost. And I know that's, nobody likes moral victories, but I see the writing on the wall. You have to see it. As soon as Heupel gets some talent, as soon as he gets some competitive depth in there, then maybe we can compete in the 4th quarter. You know what I'm saying? To get a complete game out of them. So, but anyway, man, I think we're talking about an Alabama team that's destined for the college football playoffs. I don't see anything stopping them right now. Do you got their schedule? What's after this?
They got LSU. They got a bye week, then they got LSU. After LSU, Shane, they got New Mexico State. Ooh, that's a tough one. Arkansas at home, and then at Auburn.
Arkansas at home, and then at Auburn. Mm-hmm. You never know about that one. So I'm not saying it's a clear path, but I right now, the way that Alabama has progressed here the last couple of weeks, I do not see them slowing down. This is national championship contender. So the roster is loaded. The line, I'm telling you, that trench play, buddy. You're looking at a Tennessee offense that one of our bread and butter was running. If you think about it, we were averaging over 200 yards, like 270 yards a game. And that front three, I don't care. They could have put one lineman up there. I'm telling you, they whooped our ass up front. The offensive, they lived in the backfield. They did not have to apply external pressure because those boys got back there and they wreaked havoc. So I'm telling you, man, that's probably one of the best trench warfares I've seen since the Georgia game.
Yeah, Tennessee finished with only 64 rushing yards. Alabama 203. How about Brian Robinson, Shane? He's looking like a mini Derrick Henry back here. I know he scored, 4 touchdowns against Ole Miss. He added 3 here against Tennessee. Bryce Young, I believe he became the first ever Alabama player, Shane, to throw for 300 and rush for 2 more touchdowns. And then John Mechie, my prize pick selection, 11 catches, 121, 2 touchdowns. And Jamison Williams, he didn't have his best performance, but hell, 6 catches, 123. And if that ain't your best, that gives you an idea of how great of a player he's been for the Crimson Tide this year.
God. And again, Greg should never get to commentate an Alabama game. Just FYI, I'm just saying. I bet he's watched his replay 3 times now. He's just so tickled pink for Alabama. But anyway,
it seemed like they were dropping a lot of guys on defense. How did that open things up for Bryce to use his legs a few times?
Well, they mixed it up. They mugged it up, and then they dropped guys out and dropped 8. And then at times they pressured us out of that. A couple times we messed up the protection. We didn't get it blocked right. Bryce made some critical third down scrambles that kept drives alive. I think a big difference in the game is they were like 2 of 13 on third down, and we were really good on third down. And didn't like the way we got started in the second half, 2 3-and-outs right off the bat. But, I think the difference in the game was our ability to control the ball. I mean, our time of possession was way up there, and a lot of that is due to the fact that we converted third downs. They didn't sustain drives, and even though they were going fast, they didn't sustain drives. They scored 3 times on big plays. And on the 3rd and 8, on the 8-yard line, we busted the coverage. Half guys playing one thing, half guys playing the other, or we could have got off the field right there. But look, I have a lot of respect for their team, their quarterback, their coach, and the way they're playing. This is a great win for our team.
Can you remember a game in tight situations where you had 3 busted coverages like that?
Well, one of them, the 3rd and 8 was a bust. The 2 early ones was a bust. I mean, we weren't lined up and ready to play on the 70-yard touchdown, that the last one that they scored. Josh was standing there looking at the sidelines trying to get the signal, and they went fast and snapped the ball, and the guy ran right by him before he ever even was lined up and ready to play. So that really wasn't a bust. D. Wright getting beat on the chop route was not really a bust. But then we got him 3rd and 8 at the 8, and we busted. And the 2 longer passes early in the game were we didn't execute. So, but the offense answered, and we kept scoring points. I think it was big to get an interception at the end of the game, which sort of put the game out of reach and changed the game in the 4th quarter. So, we need to fix those things, but we had some matchup issues out there today that we're going to have to work on and try to get fixed.
Yeah, Josh, this is a game where you could have set Hendon, set out Tyon. Instead, you put those guys out there to win. What do you think that message said to your team about the importance of this game?
Our team fighting plays the way they do because they believe in what we're doing and who we are. They believe that we had an opportunity to come here and win a football game. That's the way that they played for 3 quarters. Didn't have enough in the 4th quarter to go get it done. Hendon was able to get enough work during the week to be ready to play. Tyon, same thing. If guys are ready to go, they want to get on the field and go compete.
Yeah, Josh, on that 4th and 1 around midfield, did you consider going for that at any point? And then on the Byron Young touchdown run that looked like you fumbled and recovered, what was the explanation that you got from the officials on that?
The 4th down, did consider going for it, then communicated to move to punt, and we didn't get our punt team on there. On the scramble that turned into a touchdown for them, initially was just talking to the side judge, and he said that the box didn't have a view for it to be overturned. Basically, that he had crossed the goal line based on the footage that they had. Continued to communicate with him. Told him I was close to burning timeout, and then they ended up reviewing it from up top. And not only did they decided it was a fumble. They decided it was a touchdown too, where our guy ended up with the football on the coming out of the pile.
Josh, your defense kept you in the game when your offense was struggling. What did that tell you about your defense's sense of responsibility to keep it close?
It's who they are as competitors. They line up, and they're going to fight with everything that they got. They're going to be relentless in their effort. The way that they ran to the football, the pressure that we got up front. Quarterback obviously is a really good player. Got out, made plays with his feet. They continue to line up and go compete, man. I love that group.